Welcome back to the Circle of Knowledge podcast. I am your host, Jon Kovach Jr., and this has been an interesting yet an amazing season for me as it is May. And wherever you're listening to the podcast, wherever you're receiving this, wherever you're watching it, you might be watching it in May, you might be watching it in June, you might be watching it 2 or 3 years down the road. Who knows? But wherever you're receiving this podcast, here in Utah, it is May, which means that yesterday was 80 degrees and today is 35 degrees with snow flurries. So if you ever wanted your weather report, there it is. And so that is the change of weather. I'm really excited, you guys, to have today's conversation. I've had the opportunity to meet with this individual through a plethora of ways, through a professional format called a mastermind, through observing their awesomeness through social media, being a connection and building relationships, and just having an opportunity to conduct conversations with this individual. I'm really excited for you guys to learn because she's definitely an example of somebody who can turn things around, pivot when she wants to and needs to, chase her passions and turn those into profits, prosperity, and so much more. Before I introduce this individual, I just wanted to remind everybody that the 13 Steps to Riches book series is out live and available. Volume number 6 on organized planning comes out next week. It's pretty exciting. So we have some great new announcements there. Go find it on Amazon.com or run on over to barnesandnoble.com and you can pick it up there. They ship direct to your house if you need to do that. And so we're just really, really proud of the book series and all that we've got going on. And if you ever would like to learn more about us, you can always go to ridealongguestpass.com, or you can also go to the Champion Circle by going to mychampionscircle.com. That'll take you to our event page. But we are locally based in Salt Lake City, though our expanding chapters are growing into states near you. And today's interview is someone who I've, again, previously met, who I've had the opportunity to connect with. I'm excited to introduce to you guys Miss Phephe Rose. Phephe is an artist, a multidisciplinary, a designer, and founder of Brush Up Your Brand and Brush Up Your Space. She provides a captivating brand image for spaces, turning them into sought-after destinations. Phephe is an advocate for the creative arts with a mission to inspire, to empower the next generation. I'm really excited to bring on this friend of mine and to have my listeners get to know her. Phephe, thank you for joining the Circle of Knowledge podcast.
Hi. Yeah, John, and thank you for inviting me. I'm really happy to be here.
Super excited to have you. It was a few months ago. I was actually reaching out to a bunch of creators. This is creators on TikTok, really well-known. We'll just call them creators for now, but creatives and creators on TikTok, Instagram, and just through social media. And one of my interests was interviewing some of the top creators in my world to just kind of get to know them, to learn their processes, but also introduce them to my audience. And Phephe is like one of the top people on there. She's got a following. She is active. She's got her brand in motion. She is just so many people love and watch Phephe on social media. And I thought, man, if I could just get like a few minutes of Phephe's time, because she is busy, you guys, I was extremely excited to have you on the show and to interview a little bit and help my listeners get to know you. You and I talked yesterday briefly prior to this to get ourselves ready for this interview, and we talked about how there's some pretty cool principles in your life, in your story, that we can teach some of these entrepreneurs, these business owners, these newly owning business owners to take action, to build success in their life, but also to chase their passions and to sort of pivot. So I'd like to start off the interview by just asking you an open-ended question, which is, could you tell us a little bit more about you, your history, where you grew up, and just what we're looking for is what got you to today? Like what brought you to the present moment?
Yeah, so I grew up in San Diego. I kind of lived in Southern California my entire life. I mean, once you get to good weather, it's hard to leave it.
Yeah.
But I grew up always loving to draw. I loved art. I would always, love getting art supplies. And I started taking community art classes. And then fortunately, my high school and middle school had an arts program. And so I was able to kind of cultivate that passion for drawing early on. And when it was time to go to college, I ended up choosing architecture major. At the time, I didn't know much about it. I just knew, one, I loved art. Two, I didn't want to be a gallery artist because that's kind of the only exposure I had when you say you love art. And three, my dad, I grew around construction. My dad's in construction. So I thought art, construction, that equals architecture, right? So I kind of went on that path to getting my architecture degree from US, the University of Southern California. And after that, I came out in 2009, which was a little difficult finding jobs in the field and kind of getting your, feet in the door during that time. And so I found myself in property management working with a friend that I knew from college. And so she actually was the person who seeded entrepreneurship in me early on. And in 2012, we quit the company we were both with and started entrepreneurship. The types of businesses we started are kind of not relevant, but we did, I think, 3 different businesses, the third being more successful. And I'm a creative at heart. So it was very difficult for me to be in a business that, like, I wasn't fully myself and doing what I fully loved. And so I was ready to kind of go on my own. I learned business skills through, that experience, from mentorship from my friend and other medias of learning about business, marketing, and sales. And the end of 2015, I left the partnership that I was in to kind of start my own creative studio. And at that time, I just kind of was playing with different things. I mean, people, like, the thing too is, like, this whole time I've been building my name, my personal brand, Phephe Rose, like a creative. And so people started to approach me with different opportunities, saying, as simple as, can you do this flyer? Can you create this logo for me? Can you create this drawing for me that I want to give to my, sister for her birthday? And so I started just saying yes to a bunch of different opportunities like that, and kind of just seeing where it went. And eventually it's kind of led me where I am today. The business, I can get a little deeper in a minute, but the business evolved over time, the creative studio, and it's kind of brought me to where I am today with Brush Up Your Brand and Brush Up Your Space.
That's amazing. And I want to dive a little bit deeper into your just love for the art. I mean, what is your favorite? Like, what about art just makes you tick? You wake up in the morning, you've got an idea. Is it drawing? Is it painting? Is it all the above? Is it breaking down a wall? Like, tell us a little bit more about your passion in creative art.
Yeah, I mean, I've probably played around with everything. I mean, at the root of it, it's definitely drawing. Like, I love the texture of pencil on paper. And I love to just sketch and sit outside and sketch buildings, or just, kind of play around with it. So that's kind of at the root of it. I have dabbled in painting, although I don't do it as often. I love watercolor. I mean, now I'm in the built environment with architecture, so I have knocked some walls down before. So I don't know, I've explored everything, and I think there's still more to explore. I've recently, in the past couple of years, got into children's illustration, and that's just been another avenue to be expressive. I love imagination, and I think as children, we have a lot of it. And, when we grow up, we hold crayons before we learn to write our names. And there's just one point, though, that, we kind of people stop drawing, stop doodling. And I think that it's great to just keep hold of that and to hang on to that early imagination and creativity, because it can be applied in so many different avenues.
I think it's fascinating that I can tell, and I want to ask this question mostly because I want my listeners to hear and see this, but I've asked this to a few artists who I've had on the show. Some are painters and some are drawing and doodlers, professional doodlers, and so much more. And I can just tell that based on who you are, Phephe, there's this just tick to express through creative expression. And it's not necessarily the thought mindset of, man, if I make this painting, I could sell it for $30,000. It's less about that and more about, wow, my brain just works differently. How do you, and I've asked this question in a different many different ways, but how do you express? I know you just shared that you've done everything, but when you go to pen to paper, what does it usually start out as? Does it surprise you? Is it always something new, or is it always exactly as you thought of, and you're just so in love with what you've created? Like I guess the question is when you put pen to paper, what starts to happen? Is it a free flow? Is it a concentration thing, or do you just like get into this mode?
Yeah, I mean, usually I feel like it starts to kind of in your head, like something's kind of formulating. You can't really fully see the full image, but like there's this kind of just little spark of something. And so for me, it's just like I mean, it's a bunch of bad sketches. I don't like to actually show anyone my initial sketches because they'll be like, "You draw? This is how you draw?" And so it just kind of because I need to kind of play around for a while and try to see what I'm envisioning and how do I get that on paper. Especially whether it's, it's drawing a character or it's drawing a logo for a company. It's just a bunch of sketches trying to find, for me, that vision that I'm seeing, that I know that's kind of there, and trying to find it and filter it through my thoughts through drawing. And so then it's kind of refinement through that. And I mean, when I do professional like logo and branding work, I kind of then take that sketch and, you got to translate it digitally, and then you kind of move it into that space. But I would say for me, it's just a lot of really bad sketches of brainstorming, kind of a brain dump.
Yeah.
To then find things that you like about maybe different parts of the different drawings, or there's one that finally comes through and stands out from the rest.
That's amazing. You answered the question way better than I would have anticipated, and I'm so glad to hear that, because I really want my listeners to hear the fact that everything that hits, we'll call it lead to paper. I was saying pen to paper, but who draws with pen, right? Lead to paper. Who in their right mind is creates actual perfection right from the beginning? It takes time. You got to doodle it out. You got to work it out. And I love that, because you've probably gone through hundreds of sketchbooks throughout your lifetime.
Yeah.
And that's amazing. And I kind of want to bring my audience to the present now and talk to you about what you're doing now, because there's an interesting journey that you're going through, but also I think it's amazing. And I got to give you a little backstory. The hardest class that I ever took in my college career was, and I would take calculus 3 times over rather than this class, only because my patience and my brain doesn't work that way. But I love and respect the people whose brains do. And the one class that I would never take over again, and I would just trade it for calculus times 3, is Introduction to Drawing. Like, that was the hardest. It was a creative arts class I had to take for my major. And I mean, the kids around me were just like pumping out work like every other hour. And I was taking stuff home, working on it for 3 or 4. I felt like Napoleon Dynamite. You ever seen Napoleon Dynamite?
Yeah.
I spent 3 hours on the shading of your upper lip. Like, I felt like it took me 3 hours to draw a circle. So that's my background in art. And so I have such a passion and love for supporting the creative arts and those who operate in that way, because you truly have a remarkable brain and a remarkable mind. And so what I'm getting to now is I want to kind of lean into what you're doing today, because I know that you have experience in branding. You've done some logos. You've done amazing things, website creation, and so much more for other people. What is that leading you to do today? And if you want to walk us through that transformational or even just that pivotal journey, tell us about what you've been doing now.
Yeah, so basically, like I had mentioned, in early 2016, I went on my own, and I got different business coaching and different advice. And so just being an artist and knowing design, going through architecture school, you kind of get a strong sense, disciplinary on any levels of design, and then it can be applied in a lot of ways. So I didn't know specifically at that time. And so I kind of took a lot of business advice and just mentorship advice. And it was just kind of like, okay, build a graphic design business, make money quickly, do this. And then it kind of evolved into branding as I was building myself, my own personal brand. And so graphic design, kind of the business of that, evolved to building your brand. And I kind of was just, I felt like told, and I was listening, you know, because I didn't really know I didn't know a lot. And so I was following the direction of other people of, okay, do it this, serve these people, and build this type of business. And so I was still, which I was grateful, I was still creating art and I was still being creative. But then recently, this happened actually just last year. So I built the business and it started to be successful, and I was getting clients, you know, I was creating higher branding packages and starting to sell those. And I kind of then realized, and I was servicing service-based businesses. And then I kind of realized, is this kind of what I want to be doing? Is this the client? Am I excited about this client? Am I excited to build this type of client's business brand? And in reality, I wasn't. And I kind of was like, what did I spend several years doing? When I finally reached what I needed to reach, I was just like, if I have to do 20 of these brands a year, I'm just gonna, you know, go crazy. And it didn't excite me. I felt excitement when I would do my friends' companies, no matter what they were. But when it was started to be people I didn't know and they were just kind of random businesses, I didn't have that same excitement. And so then I kind of had to reflect that, like, what type of business do I want to do? Or like, what do I really want to be doing? And that kind of led me back into architecture. I was servicing a couple clients who I realized, I kind of looked at my client list and thought, who are my favorite ones? And they both happened to be in real estate. And so then I kind of got the itch of wanting to be back in architecture, wanting to design again. And so I worked that out. And that's a whole kind of separate thing on getting back into that space. But I've already built this, you know, branding business, this solid branding business. And then I, you know, wanted to get into architecture. And so I started to take steps forward in that direction. And that's where kind of brush up your space is evolving into. But then I felt like I had now built two different businesses that were fighting each other, and it was pulling me in different ways. And so I had to then kind of reflect. And like I said, I looked at my favorite clients, and they were both in real estate. And I said, you know what? I'm going to stop serving personal brands and service-based brands and completely go real estate branding and graphic design. So I flipped my whole branding business, started over, looked at new services and products I can deliver, said goodbye to some really great clients, and started with two. And so the ones that I already had. And so I started to build my client list all over again. And that's kind of what I had to do. And it felt like it now felt more in alignment. I was enjoying what I was learning in design and getting certain selective jobs in that space, some interior design, and some architectural design, and different, even just furniture styling, kind of just getting my feet wet in that side of things. And then now it's like, okay, this is a complementary service. So if I'm designing a lobby of a multifamily building, let's say, I could also do the branding and marketing of that building, creating their floor plans, their graphic flyers, and all those things. So it's starting now to go hand in hand and work together versus fighting themselves. And then that just kind of created a weight off my shoulders. Like, even before I started to kind of rebuild, just saying I was like not going to do this anymore and I'm going to do this, a whole weight lifted. I felt like, because before I felt like I wasn't excited networking. I was like over Zoom stuff and trying to meet my target, and just trying to talk about my services became a chore. I wasn't excited. And as soon as I was like, okay, I'm going to pivot, I'm going to go in this direction, like I felt lighter and more excited. And then when I started to talk to people about what I was up to now and the change, or I was speaking to just new clients, they could tell the difference. They, could tell I was excited and wanted to be a part of this and be in this space. And that felt really good, that was starting to happen. It felt more good, and it felt easier now to sell these services, to talk about my business, and just, became more in alignment with who I am and what I want to do.
I love hearing your story, Phephe. And after we talked about it briefly yesterday, I love these details. And I know I've said the words, and I don't want my audience to fixate on these words. I've used the word pivot. I've used the word transformation. But one of my actual favorite words that I'd love to describe you as, because this is a leadership example to all the creatives out there, to those who operate on this level. And this is such a great example of just one, following your true passion and your true interests, being willing and brave enough, but also strategic enough, right, to make
Mhm.
the transition. And my favorite word is malleable, right? I like this word because you have to literally move your mouth when you say malleable, right? And the word malleable is like moldable. It's you can learn. You're coachable. You allow your learning interests to form and shape what needs to happen. And now you're back in this world of real estate, doing what you love and what you're really good at, taking your skill sets from one profession to the same, but yet
Right.
enhance a newer profession. It's so cool. And I think that's just a fantastic example to a lot of these entrepreneurs on this podcast who are, within the first 3 years of their business, they're looking for that pivot, or they're looking for that option, they're looking for something, and oftentimes they're not following their passion. They're not looking for, what will I really get out of this. And
Yeah.
that's not to say that people actually like go back to school because they have no idea what to do, and it's that they go back because of the learning interest that they have. And so wow, Phephe, like what a leadership example to a lot of creatives. Do you have any advice or anything you would share, any knowledge you'd like to share to maybe the community of artists, creatives, and just the creative minds on how to, maybe even bravery is the word, but like how to bravely make that transition and continue adjusting or moving into their passion?
Yeah, I mean, in order, I feel like, to be a creative and be an entrepreneur at the same time, you do have to, like, you have your craft, and that can only, kind of go so far, but you do have to apply, business techniques into it. And there can always be the artwork that, really fuels you, but not all ideas and all things will thrive, build a thriving, successful business. So for me, I have two parts of me. Like, there's the illustration where I do comics and I get into the children's illustration, literary stuff, and that's more expressive. And if I only do one book and it doesn't sell, like, or it does, only sells a couple copies, like, I'm okay with that. But then I've also built a creative business that is more strategic, like you mentioned, and that's Brush Up Your Brand. And so I applied a lot of, the design disciplinaries and the creative side of me to build a structured business. And that's what has, been successful and can build and can scale. It's a scalable business. And so you do kind of have to do it in that lens to really grow. Because as creatives, or even technicians, we only have the hours of our day to create. So how do you make more of that? If you only have 8 hours, a day, in one artwork takes 8 hours, then you're only producing 5, works of art a week, and you're at a capacity. And so what can you do, to create something that's scalable? And so if you're creating a painting, that's, doing art prints and other different products to add to that. For me, it was like, taking these skills and applying it to branding and graphic design. And then and that can kind of function on its own. So I now have hired design assistants and graphic designers to handle that part of the business. And then where my useful time is being more of the creative director, and then getting on the designs of the interior design of the projects that fall under Brush Up Your Space. So I think it's kind of like, you've kind of got to look at it strategically to really, build a successful business as a creative. And there's a bunch of different ways to do it, like, no matter what area that you're in. Because I think we, as creatives, we have this tug and pull, and I struggled this with a lot when they were saying, do graphic design. And I was like, I don't want to do graphic design. And it was a struggle, like, but I want to do this, and I want to do this, and I want to say yes to this. And you can kind of still see, I still do a lot of things, and it's very hard to say no. And I know creatives fall in that a lot of, like, do this, but there's got to be that one that you're a little bit smarter about, and you build it structurally, like any other, business, to then scale it.
Yeah, that's again just a beautiful example following your passion, taking the advantage of learning, and also strategically finding ways to either continue the previous skills and services, or to find new ways to enhance the new interests. I think that's great. And again, a leader to the artists, Phephe. I know that you mentioned, and by the way, for my listeners, go and just connect, like follow Phephe Rose on like Instagram, or go connect with her on social media. It'll blow you away how much of a branding expert she is. And I can obviously see through her office, she's taking a lot of her ideas and her I don't even know what you would call it, like not even the contemporary, but just like the modern view of elegance, beauty, and background, and design in just a small little cube of a video here that we have on our show. So it's really obvious and really interesting to me that your passion and your ability to create sort of a brand through the means of color, design, and so much more in architecture, you can pivot that into something really, really cool. I'm excited, and I think that you guys will see Phephe on stage a lot more in the future, as she'll be leading this group of creatives. She'll be teaching and sharing a lot more. She's a great communicator. She's an awesome business owner, and she's somebody who is definitely passionate about what she does. And I know that you've been talking about getting more into the speaking realm, even though you've done a lot of speaking before, but it's something that you're definitely moving into, I assume.
Yeah, I'm kind of approaching it at a different angle. Before I was doing it, again, I felt it was forced. And just for all entrepreneurs out there, just kind of reflect, I think, on what feels right, and be brave enough to change it when it does it. And so I was doing some speaking stuff, but it was talking about, these branding services, and it felt forced. And so there was so then I felt like this is hard. And now I'm kind of coming to this position of, these conversations, similar to what we're having, and it feels a lot more natural. I do want to be a voice for creatives, and kind of express how to thrive as an artist and a creative. So that's where I'm coming into in the speaking world, and it feels a lot more natural. And so for all entrepreneurs, I think just when you're building this business, it's okay that the overword, right, is using pivot, and it's okay to change and go in a different direction, because you still have that skill set that you learned through all those either months or years. And this was years for me to finally find what it is that I love to do. I quit my job in June of 2012. So it's been 10 years. So that overnight success does take 10 years for some. But I've learned so much over time, and we've all learned so much through our journey. And then when you kind of find that the right fit is there, I think it really all does flow a lot more naturally, and opportunities just kind of come knocking on your door.
That's amazing. Do you have any, and you don't have to, I'm just putting it on the spot here, but it's more fun. Is that, do you have any work that you have tangibly in front of you that you're just super proud of, that you're like, hey, look what I drew, or look what cartoons I've made, or anything that just is purchasable out there from other clients?
Yeah, actually, one of these books behind, not all of these books are mine, by the way, but two of them are. And this one, it's okay. Let me see how I can get in the camera. This is from the company Hatch Brighter. This is a self-love book for children. And I think you just go to hatchbrighter.com. This is the first book of a series I'm working on with them. And basically, I was really proud because I pretty much learned, how to build the book, doing the cover. And this is more on my illustration side, and, formatting all the pages and adding all these moments of artwork. And let me see if I can find a couple. Sorry, I wasn't prepared for this, but there's a lot of different spot illustrations and a lot of different things. And basically I designed every single page because it was all unique. And so it took several months to do. I'm very proud of it. And we're already talking about book number 2 that they want to create. So it was just a really fun project, and it kind of allowed me again to get into my drawing side of things and create something that was really fun and meaningful for its audience.
That's awesome. And again, I put you on the spot, but that was
Luckily, he was behind me. Otherwise, I'd be like,
it was a great show and tell because it's beautiful. It is it.
Yeah.
The words I used earlier, like it's got elegance. It's obvious that your skills and branding, and there's just so much more. So thank you for sharing that with us. And
Sure.
I'm glad to hear the words that I'm really proud of this. And they're talking about book number 2 like that. That in and of itself is really cool. So
Yeah.
I'm grateful for just the example of following your passion and leading into that you've showed, Phephe. More for the creatives, but also for everybody. I mean, there are so many people and listeners of this podcast who are literally struggling. They're just trying to get from paycheck to paycheck to make sure that their business is functioning. But in that process, they're losing the passion that they have for serving people or for
Mhm.
creating what they create. And I think that you're a refreshing reminder of passion chasing and also creating in the process. And that's great. And I just think that it's too, like, it's so evident of your personality and just who you are, your values, is that you said it twice. I don't know if you recognize this, but you said it twice, which is it just didn't feel, it felt out of alignment. It felt like I was forcing it, and that was something that I thought, wow, okay, let's touch on that for a second. We don't want to force anything, and I know that
Yeah.
my listeners are probably forcing a lot of paychecks, probably forcing a lot of new customers because they want to grow or scale or whatever it is, right? But at the same time, too, you've mentioned like you've had to let go of some really great clients in order to have what you really want. And so, what are you willing to have? Are you willing to have more clients that you don't like serving, or fewer clients that you absolutely love serving because it is your passion? I think you're a great example of that.
Yeah. Well, I think when you start out, you do say yes to things you kind of don't want because okay, this is money coming in. And so initially you kind of are saying, okay, I'll have more clients of stuff I don't like than less clients of stuff I do. And then there's a point where it's our own enjoyment. And again, what business are we building to fulfill each day? And then you kind of brave enough, I think, to change that and to start to say no and to start to let go. And it's a little scary at first because you kind of downsize yourself, but then eventually you start to grow it back up because people will know your reputation, will know your integrity and your brand, and what you bring to the table, and new opportunities will start to pop up.
That's amazing. Well, Phephe, you are a busy woman. You have a lot going on. You've got so much more coming up, and I'm just so grateful for the time you've spent on the show. I'd love to have you back sometime and just follow up on these new architectural journey that you've got going on. It's super exciting. I want to give you an opportunity to share any parting words or any information. And in fact, the question I always ask on the show is, what's an action right now that you would encourage my listeners to take? Like, as a result of all the discussions, the conversations, the knowledge that we've shared, what's something that you want to just challenge them to take immediate action on based on the information they've received today?
Yeah, I would just say, take 5 to 10 minutes. And this is kind of what got me to pivot really was I took some time and I wrote a list of certain things I wanted to accomplish within a certain time frame. And this was for me, it was like 5 years. And so kind of take that time and see if those things are matching with what you're doing and the actions you're taking and whether it's personal goals or your business goals, like, is that list of what you really want? Is that what you're actually doing? And for me, I realized I wasn't doing the things on my list. And so that got me to change. So I would do that is just take 5 to 10 minutes, write a list of 5 to 10 things that are just different goals, personal and business, and see what is in alignment and what's out of it. And decide what you want to do from there and take action to move into alignment.
Wonderful and beautifully said. Phephe, thank you so much for joining us on the Circle of Knowledge podcast. And you guys go check her out. Go if you're interested in learning more about what she's up to and how she's transforming spaces. Go to pheferose.com. You can enlist on an opportunity to connect with her. She is a very busy woman, and I know her team can receive you and find a time for you to connect. And I'm just really grateful for our connection, the way we've connected our friendship, and also just the opportunity I have to to pour into you so that I can extract some information to teach other people how great of a person you are and what a great leader you've been to many other people. So thank you so much for just doing all of that and for perpetuating that vision of awesomeness that you continue to do.
Thank you, Jon. This was a blast to be a part of.
Awesome. And everybody, this has been a really fun episode of the Circle of Knowledge podcast featuring Phephe Rose. Go check her out at pheferose.com. And if you have any other awesome things you'd like to say about the show, please send an email to team@mychampionscircle.com, where you'll reach one of our team members who can help you and also answer any questions. And also we can feature your question on the show. So with that being said, I just want to remind everybody that everything you have or everything you need is already within you now. Take immediate action and go forth and serve other people. And you'll find that everything you want, everything you need is already within your grasp. Thank you guys. We'll see you next time on the Circle of Knowledge podcast.